Okay, it is 4:01. I just hit record on this event, and so let's get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Dan Bostrom. I'm the Rails Member Engagement Manager, and you are here for a Rails Online Roundtable, Easy ILL for Schools. The way that these Rails Online Roundtables work is we typically do a short presentation, and then we leave a ton of time for discussion. So the discussion will be happening mostly in the chat. You will have time to ask Eric some questions. I'm really excited about today's event because we have a great presenter. It's my colleague Eric Bain. Eric is the technology special projects coordinator for Rails, and one of the biggest things that he does is he is the guy behind Find More Illinois. He really does all the support and training for that, and he knows a lot about the software. And he's going to tell you a little bit more about it. I think he's going to do a fantastic presentation. So before we do that, I'm going to some news and updates. I just want to give you background, some stuff that's happening around Rails. I mentioned Eric's presentation. That'll probably be about 10 to 15 minutes. Then we'll do Q&A, and then I'll come back and we'll do some conclusion to wrap up and get you out of here definitely before 5 o'clock. Okay, so let's just do some news and updates. First of all, I want to tell you, since a lot of you out there are school libraries, we have a grant specifically for school libraries that is coming up very soon. So my library is grants for schools. What we are doing is we are offering 10 grants of up to $1,000 each. We've partnered with ISLE on these, and we're really excited because ISLE has been a great partner. We're hearing a lot from our school libraries that they need these resources. They need the ability to tell their story. So if you have a project, if you have a campaign to make the case to funders, to put together a video, to put together a podcast or something like that, you can apply for this grant. One of the coolest things that we're doing for you is you can actually apply by video. So you can record a video about why you need the money, what you're going to put the money towards, submit it into our form, and you can be entered. The application deadline is January 15th, 2021. So you're about a month away, but still time to do this. But we're really excited about this. This is the first year that we're offering this, and we really think that it's going to be useful for schools. If you want to know more about these particular grants, I have a great opportunity for you. A week from today, so Wednesday at 4 o'clock, we're going to be doing a very informal roundtable. This is just going to be myself and Mary Jo Matusik from ISLE. We're just going to be talking about the grant. I'll do a short presentation about what we're looking for, the requirements, the criteria, that kind of stuff. And then we'll just basically be doing a Q&A. So you can talk to us. You can say like, hey, I'm interested in doing this. Would this apply? That sort of thing. We had a great response when we initially launched this. And we really want to make sure that people know what they're doing and have all the information necessary to put together a great application. So if you do want to sign up for that, please do. Much like this event that you're attending today, this event next week will be recorded, and we're going to be putting it on the Rails YouTube page. So we'll go directly on there. I'll put a link in the ISLE email list, and just wanted to make you aware of all the places you can find it. If that's not help enough, I also wanted to point out something that we have that is up on the Rails website right now. So anybody who is a Rails member in a Rails member library can access the Rails archived webinars. And this was a session that we did about a month ago. It was called Winning Library Grants. It was presented by Stephanie Girding, who is the author of a library grants blog. She's written about how to win library grants. She does a fantastic job. You can access this whenever you want, and I would suggest this might be a good step to writing your application or creating your video for the My Library Is grant. You do need an L2 login, so if you don't know your L2 login, make sure to go to librarylearning.org in order to find that out. And then you can access this. It's about an hour long, so it's right there on the Rails website. I just wanted to also note that I'm very excited. My colleagues who do the support and training for eRead Illinois, they've done a fantastic. They put together a grant application for funds to add ebooks to the Access 360, the eRead collection. And I know a lot of you in libraries are part of this. So if you are interested, we are looking for suggestions. So you can suggest titles and material to add to that Access 360 collection. So we have a form on the eRead website. You must be an eRead library to submit, and you must know your L2 login again. again to submit. But this is a great thing. We're really looking for your feedback on this. Again, we have $125,000 to spend, so we think that we are going to be able to acquire some really great stuff. Please help us. The link is on there, and actually I sent out an email about this to the IO listserv today, so do check that out. Last thing I want to just to put a plug in here is I did this about a year ago. I thought it was a lot of fun. The soon-to-be famous Illinois author manuscript project. Basically, what it is libraries across Illinois are getting people in their community to submit manuscripts that they want to have edited to become an actual finished product, and then they can be entered into the soon-to-be famous Illinois author project, which is kind of the next step here. So you can volunteer to be a judge. Anybody can volunteer. Judges will read approximately 9 manuscripts, and that's over the course of about 3 months. I did this. You read a lot of different stuff. You get to read some sci-fi. I read some sci-fi. I read some romance. I read some kind of like fantasy. It was a lot of fun. And then the winners are going to be chosen. The winner is chosen in April 2021. So if you do want to do this, visit the soon-to-be famous Illinois author website, and there's a link to sign up for that. Okay, I'm done talking, but I really appreciate everybody attending and listening. I'm going to turn it over here. I'm going to stop sharing, but first I just want to introduce my colleague, Eric Bain. Again, he's the Technology Special Projects Coordinator for Rails, and he is here to tell you about how to do easy ILL for schools and a little bit more about Find More Illinois. Okay, Eric, you ready?
Thanks, Dan, and hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Am I good?
Sounds great, Eric.
Okay. I'm excited to talk to this group about Find More Illinois. We'd love to have more school libraries join the project, and it's a great way to increase the resources available to your students and staff. Because Dan knows me, he asked me to summarize Find More Illinois without getting into the weeds of it. This slideshow will introduce you to concepts in broad strokes, but I can share more details afterward if you'd like. You can also visit our website, www.findmoreillinois.org, for more information. Just be sure to log in with your L2 username and password to access everything there. We're also happy to discuss things on the phone, via email, or in one-on-one Zoom sessions. Contact us at info@findmoreillinois to start a conversation tailored to your local needs. So, what is Find More Illinois? It's a Rails project that simplifies access to more than 3 million items via interlibrary loan. It uses web-based software called ShareIt to manage item requests and their transit between libraries using different software. All Illinois libraries can join Find More Illinois because ShareIt can connect them regardless of their size, type, or catalog. The image on this slide shows how Find More Illinois provides an extra layer of resources between the local library collection and remote ILL providers. When an item isn't available in a local or shared catalog, members search Find More Illinois. When an item isn't available in Find More Illinois, it helps members search other sources like OCCC. Speaking of OCCC, Find More Illinois has some advantages over ILL via WorldShare, including real-time shelf status for items, automatically generated lender lists, and easy multi-copy requests for staff. Since there's been some confusion about the scope of the project, this slide explains what Find More Illinois is not. It's not an alternative to library software like Atrium, Destiny, or Sierra. It complements that software. It doesn't replace the variety of services available in PrairieCat, RSA, or other LSAPs. Also note that not everything in Find More Illinois is available for interlibrary loan. For example, members may block requests for parts of their collection. In addition, Find More Illinois searches against consortia catalogs find everything in that catalog, not just items owned by our members. It's a great tool for interlibrary loan, but that's its only role. Hopefully that clarifies any misunderstanding and helps you make an informed decision about its worth to your library. While all libraries can benefit from Find More Illinois, it can transform interlibrary loan at standalone libraries. It gives standalones without any library software an online catalog for local searches that can expand beyond the local collection. It gives standalones with library software like Atrium or Destiny a bridge to resources at other participating libraries. It also makes otherwise isolated standalone collections available to all members. But the libraries that see the most benefit from Find More Illinois are those that make it part of an active interlibrary loan program. How do patrons access Find More Illinois resources? The simplest way is to add a hyperlink to share it on your website. Another option is to install a widget that sends search terms to share it from your website. But my favorite option is an open URL search redirect from your online catalog to share it. Unfortunately, this is also the most complicated option to set up, and some library software vendors don't support it. If there's any interest, I can demo each of these options during the Q&A. Once you're in ShareIt, it's easy to place Find More Illinois requests. The first step is to enter a search, either manually or through a search widget or open URL. Now, while searches can be refined several ways, I'm going to skip over those options to save time. ShareIt's search functionality is much the same as any online catalog. However, this group may find its filters for awards, audience, and reading programs especially helpful. Let Dan know if you'd like more details. The next step is to click on the desired item in search results. And the last step is to click the request item icon to start the request process. At that point, a patron logs in to submit the request, and they're done. Requests for staff work like they do for patrons, but with more options. For example, staff can edit lender lists and place multi-copy requests. However a request is created, ShareIt automatically finds lenders with matching items while ignoring unavailable items, forwards the request to potential lenders unless staff prefer to approve them first, and sends notification as the request changes status. When a request is routed to a Find More Illinois library, staff process it in ShareIt. A pick list helps staff find pending lender requests for local items on shelf. Next, staff update the status of the request. Lender requests that will be supplied are updated to the shipped status. Rejected requests are automatically sent to the next potential lender. Finally, a ShareIt shipping label is printed to route the requested item to the borrowing library. Once the shipping label is attached, staff treat the item like any other outgoing interlibrary loan. ShareIt processing is similar when the borrowing library receives the requested item and later returns it to the lender. What kind of help is available to Find More Illinois members? All libraries that join the project get a comprehensive introduction to ShareIt during hands-on training by Rails staff. Since the software isn't complicated, many people don't need guidance beyond that training. In addition, local documentation on the Find More Illinois website has step-by-step instructions for common tasks. More extensive vendor documentation is available in Share It. When members have questions or encounter problems, they contact Rails staff for support. Find More Illinois has two cost components, an annual membership fee and a one-time implementation fee. The annual membership fee is based on a library's total collection expenditures. This slide shows the lower end of the annual membership fee table. Fees start at $150 a year for libraries with collection expenditures less than $10,000. The complete table is at www.findmoreillinois.org/join. The implementation fee is a pass-through of vendor charges for Share It account setup. Since several factors can impact this fee, libraries should ask for a customized quote at www.findmoreillinois.org/join. Rails may be able to help with some of the costs associated with Find More Illinois participation. Since the amounts and availability of aid can vary, contact us at info@findmoreillinois.org to learn more. The Find More Illinois setup process starts after a library signs a participation agreement. In the next step, Rails staff work with the library to document local software and network details. Libraries usually get that information from their IT department. When data collection is complete, Share It staff create and test the library's Share It account. The last step is to train staff on how to use the Share It software and integrate its features into the local interlibrary loan workflow. The duration of the setup process is driven by the library's needs and availability, but most Find More Illinois implementations are complete within 6 to 10 weeks. That's my quick, hopefully mostly weed-free introduction to Find More Illinois. You can always visit www.findmoreillinois.org for more information. Just remember to log in with your L2 username and password for full access. But if you really want to make our day, start a conversation with us by emailing info@findmoreillinois.org. Dan, I'm hoping the group wants more details. Are there any questions?
There are, and let
Good.
me first start by Eric. I've never noticed how smooth your voice sounds over over Zoom. You did a fantastic job. You speak slowly, which I do not, which is great. And and I just felt very like calm the entire time, and I think that was mostly because of
Good,
your
because
voice.
I didn't.
Well, you put me at ease, that's for sure. Okay, we do have some questions, and this is the time when I would welcome your questions. If you want to put them in the chat, that's great. I typically don't use that Q&A section. If you want to use it, go ahead. I'll find. I can find you there. I'm going to share my screen again, just so we have something to look at here. Okay, yeah, the first question is a fantastic one, and this comes from Sia. She says, "Good." She says, "Can." I'm sorry. There's two questions. One, what is a ballpark implementation fee?
Boy, I hate to say because I'm not aware of the exact amounts available to reduce that fee. My understanding is that for libraries that have under $20,000, depending upon fund availability, sometimes the implementation fee is waived. But again, I am not the expert on the money aspect of the project. It really depends on a few things. I've noticed that looking at Dan's registration list, most of the libraries attending today use the Destiny library software. That's great because we don't have a library using Destiny yet. So I'm really eager to get that working with the Share It software. But every time we add a new ILS to our Share It setup, that's another charge from the vendor. So there may be a charge there for the first time work with Destiny for us. And then in addition to that, you've got standard implementation fees, which, and boy, I hesitate to say anything, but I think they're like $200 to $250.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, Eric. That's excellent. And actually, I do want to echo that that a lot of you are using Destiny. That just seems to be whenever I go visit the school libraries in Illinois, that does seem to be the predominant catalog softwares. People are using Destiny a lot of times because they're just a follow at school.
Right,
They use follow for everything. So I
right.
totally understand that. I will say that, and maybe you can just, and I know that there's some other questions. The great questions are coming up. Yeah, yep. I do think that the majority of schools. Oops. Do you see other are there other softwares that you think schools use that might
Well,
be represent?
yes, we do have 4 schools currently in the project. Those schools are within RSA or Prairie Cat though, so they're using the Symphony or Sierra software. We had
Okay.
a member that loved the system at Rosary High School in Aurora.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, the librarian, they laid off the librarian, so they could no longer participate. They used Atrium. So
Okay.
we have experience with Atrium. I know that that setup with Atrium is fairly straightforward. It's not difficult. I unfortunately also know that Atrium and Destiny don't support the open URL functionality. When we asked Atrium, they said that they would do it, but it would cost custom programming. Custom programming fees would apply. And I'm assuming that if Destiny were to do it, they would do the same thing. And when you start getting into custom programming, things become untenable. Basically, it's not a feasible option for anybody.
Yeah. Okay. And I do know some some great schools that are using Library World. Is that something you've encountered?
Oh, okay, that's interesting. We have Hometown Public Library uses Library World.
Okay.
The limitation with Library World that we've experienced is that we can't access their patron file directly. So schools using Library World would need to send us a file of patron records that we would load into their shared account as
Okay.
needed.
Yeah. Okay, great questions. Amy says, do we need to pay for both OCLC and Find More Illinois? Yeah, I guess we got kind of have to address the OCLC thing, and you did a little bit in your
Right.
presentation, but what are the different? Maybe you can kind of I'll expand that question for you, Amy, a little bit if that's okay. What are the differences? What do you see people using, and what do you see? Do people use both?
Most of the members in Find More Illinois do use both OCLC and the Share It software. Um, so yeah, it's interesting that libraries could decide that they're going to rely solely on regional resources to get interlibrary loan resources, but nobody's done that yet. I'm really interested to talk to some of the libraries that have cut ties with OCLC to see if this is an option that will work for them. But libraries that are in Find More Illinois currently are still members of OCLC. OCLC, you cannot beat the resource pool, right? Millions and millions of records. We can't compete with that. The price point, though, for most libraries is much lower in Find More Illinois than it is for OCLC.
Yeah, and Amy, just to directly answer your question, no, you don't have to pay for both, and you really don't have to pay for either if you don't want to do any library loan. I
Right.
would suspect that you are not at this particular session if you don't want to do some interlibrary loan, but we do come across some of those folks, and I really liked Eric's bullseye graphic if you remember that, which gives you it's the landscape of interlibrary loan, right? When you are going searching for item, you're going to start in the local home catalog, and you're going to kind of move out as you go. And so that's the kind of the a lot of the times that's the way that we explain it to folks. Um, Eric, and actually this is good. This is good because I had a question for you. You indicated you used the term LSAP. And
Okay.
maybe I'm dragging you into the weeds with this, but can you explain what that means?
Sure. And thank you for that. I wasn't sure whether that was something that was commonly known. LSAP is an acronym for Local Library System Automation Program. Basically, that refers in Rails, that refers to RSA, Prairie Cat, SWAN, CCS, Rock River Library Consortium. So basically, consortia within Rails that use a shared catalog.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Amy says we already do interlibrary loan with OCLC, but I guess my question is, need to do both, or can I just do Find More Illinois? You can just do Find More Illinois if you want, or you could just do OCLC. Again, they're different products, but they work the same. Eric's. I think Eric's point is really just more about you know you can find the scope right now of Find More Illinois is a little bit limited, but it's cheaper. Eric, do we have around 50 libraries participating currently?
Well, unfortunately, because of this year, because of COVID and some library closures, some of our libraries had to drop out.
Mhm.
They're hoping that they can come back in later, but this year introduced budgeting concerns for them. And currently we have 34 libraries.
Okay. Yep. And you said 4 schools?
We have 4 schools, yes. We have Dixon, Sterling, Fulton, and Rock Falls. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I was sharing my screen and suddenly it disappeared on me. Okay. Yep. And that's great. I want to get back to this. Okay. And then great question was, can the whole district need to join as a school district, or can an individual join within that?
So if you are part of a school district and you would like to join and the rest of the school district doesn't, that's fine. If you are part of a school district that would like to join as a group, that's great too. This is something that I spoke with Ann, the director of the program, briefly yesterday. And it's really something because we haven't had a district show across the board interest yet. It's not something we've really addressed, but it is something that we're thinking about how we can address that. So that if you're interested, you should really contact us so we can start talking to you about what you need and what works best for you and or the system.
Yeah. And Amy has a great question. Is there a list of libraries currently participating? And the answer to
Yes,
that is yes. Yep. Yep. And is it on that join page?
it's actually on the main page of www.findmoreillinois.org. If you go to that URL, you'll see a map of all our members at the top. If you want a list of the libraries broken down by consortium, if you click on the Libraries tab, you'll see them broken out in addition to the map.
Oh, you know what? I tried to put it in there, and I always forget that you have to enter the libraryillinois.org. There you go. That should work. That should be linked. Okay, awesome. Another question that I had, Eric, is what would be an item that someone might want to block other libraries from being able to being able to check out? Like, how does
Mhm.
that work, and what do members usually do in regards to that?
Good question. Um, so most often it's for 2 types of books specifically. It's for new items when public libraries in particular want to reserve those new items for local patron use for 60 or 90 days before they make them available to fill interlibrary loan requests. That's one occasion where a library might say, hey, I want this collection restricted. Another one is local history items or genealogy items. Some libraries have unique items in their local history collections that they don't want to leave the library, so they will block requests on those items as well. And the setup of it is really simple. Basically, it's based on if your library system uses locations, we just use that location and share it. And you give me a list of locations and you tell me which locations have items that are available to fill interlibrary loan requests via Find More Illinois and which are restricted. And we set up a map that automatically deflects things that you do not want to share. So it's very easy and it works really well for libraries that are participating.
That's great. Thank you. Actually, you know what? I put together a poll. I'm interested. We're at about 4:30, so we got plenty of time for more questions. But I put together a poll because I'm curious about the results of this. Um, So I'm going to launch the poll. It says, is your library currently doing ILL? And we're defining that as, if you're in a school district, we're defining that as outside of your district. So are you borrowing materials from other libraries outside of your district? So I'm going to launch this poll, and I'm going to give you all about 90 seconds to answer this. We'll just hang on here. Um, when I go to member libraries, I typically ask them about interlibrary loan, and some do, some don't. It's okay if you say I don't know, because I also hear that answer quite a bit. Is people tell me like, you know what, I have no idea, and that is completely fine. School libraries have a lot going on for what they do, so that is totally fine. Okay, looks like all of you have answered, so thank you. That was quick, and it is very it's very even. Some
Hmm.
some are doing it, some are not. So that's interesting to kind of hear. Um, I do find that sometimes the bigger libraries, the bigger school libraries, especially, and the bigger school libraries don't necessarily have enough time. They're doing a
Hmm.
lot of, instruction. They are working very closely with teachers and students, and they just don't necessarily have the time. Smaller libraries don't necessarily have the manpower.
Hmm.
That's what I hear from a lot of them is there's just not enough people in the library to kind of keep ILL moving frequently. And if they're not subscribed to something like OCLC or Find More Illinois, it's just not time consuming.
Hmm.
Um, okay, I'm going to stop sharing results. Um, Okay. Yeah, actually, that's a good one. Sia says we do borrow from our public library. We have school cards. Yeah, and that is a very, very common way that people do interlibrary loan. Is they have a relationship with the public library. They borrow material. The public library says, hey, well, we're part of a shared catalog. We can borrow it for you. And there's a school card, and you just check it out right that happens everywhere. I'll tell you that much. And I think, and that's fine, and that's great if that works for you and for your library. That's wonderful. We are not we are definitely we definitely don't presume to know exactly what everybody does and what will work for everybody. So that's always useful.
Hmm.
My colleague Joe is telling me it could be worth reminding people that Rails delivery service supports Find More Illinois and ILL in general, of course, by providing free delivery across the state. Some school librarians, and you may not know this, but you can borrow you can borrow a book from any library in the state, and it will be delivered to you for free. That is the delivery side of things today. Of course, we're focusing on the ILL side of things, but the delivery side of things, remember that Rails trucks do deliver 8 million items a year, and we don't charge a dime to any of our libraries to participate in that. So Dawn says we borrow within our district, but don't have the staff to do ILL outside the district. Don't totally understand that. Thanks for coming. Um, Eric, one of the things I wanted to also follow up with you on is the term standalone. Can you talk about what a standalone library is?
A standalone library is a library that has a library automation system that only serves itself. It's not connected via software to other participating libraries. So it sounds like the school districts are not so much standalones as they are consortia in their own right. It sounds like they're all using Destiny and everybody has the same patron file and the same catalog. And if that's the case, they would not be standalones per se. However, they are rather isolated from other consortia. The software that they use, the Destiny software or the Atrium software, isn't really built to be compatible with, I'm tempted to get into the weeds with a term that I don't want to use because I don't want to confuse people. But basically, they're siloed. The Destiny and the Atrium systems are siloed, so it's really hard for patrons in other libraries or other consortia to search those resources. And that's one of the really nice things about the Find More Illinois project is that it's attempting to really open up resources. We've all got unique things. We've all got great resources that we're willing to share if we're not using them. We just need a way to do that. And Find More Illinois is Rails' attempt to provide that path, provide that gateway to the rich resources we've got available that we can't reach otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah, books want to be borrowed. That's for sure. Books want to
Yes.
be borrowed, and this is just an easier way to get them to into the hands of your patrons and your students. Uh,
Hey,
uh,
Dan,
yep.
I've got a question because I'm seeing Dawn's comment,
Yeah.
and I'm just curious. I expect that's a consideration for many school libraries, as you noted. But I'm wondering if the Share It software in Find More Illinois would make things efficient, so efficient that it's no longer a staffing concern. It's something that's very easily managed. Um, I don't know. I'd really like people to, if you can, go to the findmoreillinois.org website and there's a search widget on the main page where you can do a catalog search. Go ahead and search and then place a request and see how easy it is to initiate a request. And if we have time and people are interested, I can give you just a really quick look at what the request manager that staff use looks like.
Yeah.
It really streamlines the process.
Yeah. Do we want to take a quick look at the software? I think that might be fun. Um, and actually, you know what? We've got before we do that, we've got a couple questions. So let me address Amy's question here. Is Amy asks, how will we know if the Find More Illinois software will be compatible with Destiny?
Um, so although we haven't set up a Destiny system in Find More Illinois yet, when I learned that there were several Destiny libraries, I talked to the company and I confirmed that there are several Share It consortia that have Destiny libraries. So we know it works. We know it supports the remote searching that's required for Find More Illinois, and we know that it supports the patron authentication. So it's all set. The only thing it lacks is the fancy open URL functionality, but that's okay. Lots of people don't use that.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome. And then Jane asks, what about fines and fees for lost items?
Good question. Because Find More Illinois isn't a circulation system, it's basically just managing the sharing of resources between one library and another library. It doesn't charge fines or fees. The fines or fees would be assessed by the circulation system you use locally. So you get the item from the lending library, you check it out to the patron, and if they don't return it, your local system is going to assess fines. So the share software doesn't assign any fines.
Yeah.
However, on a related note, it can consider patrons with fines. So if you have patrons and you don't want them to be able to place requests if they're blocked, Share It can accommodate that. Some libraries do that. Other libraries say, you know what, we don't care. So even if they're blocked, they can place requests and get interlibrary loans via Find More Illinois. So it's an option.
Yeah, and actually, I wanna piggyback on that and just say, Jane says we don't charge fines for our students, but what if they are overdue at libraries that do charge fines for items? And I will say, Jane, you're part of something as part of a as part of a Rails system member, you are part of something that's called the ILNet agreement, which basically governs interlibrary loan. And basically, it says you will work together to make it as easy for everyone as possible. And so I can't answer that question for the most part because a lot of times it's one-to-one. You're going to have to work it out with the individual, with the library that you've purchased or that you've gotten the item from or that is borrowed from you. I will say that a lot of libraries will work with you on that type of thing and won't charge your students if items come in a little bit late. I think that there's an understanding there and but I hear that question all the time from libraries. Whenever I bring up the idea of interlibrary loan, they're worried that their students are going to be charged fines. But my suggestion is, you know what, in every circumstance is different, but for the most part, libraries will work with you as much as they can. Um, uh,
Dan, can I piggyback on your piggyback
please,
comment?
yeah, yeah,
So as far as Share It is concerned, it looks at your local system for patron information. So if you have a student, your local system doesn't assess fines, but they have another account at the local library and they have fines at the local public library. Share It won't care. Share It will say, okay, I'm going to authenticate this patron against the school's system. And the school system says this patron doesn't have blocks. They'd be able to place a request.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you, Eric. Another question from Amy: is any of our students' information shared?
That's an excellent question. I know that that is a concern, especially for school libraries. It's not. It isn't. Basically, ShareIt uses what's called the SIP2 protocol to authenticate patrons against the local database. And ultimately what happens is in ShareIt, a user file is created with the user's name and their barcode and their PIN and a point of contact. So if there is an email address or a phone number, it's in the user record as well. However, nobody sees that except for admins. And currently, that's just me. So I suppose if you want to be really technical about it, there is some level of information, an email address, a phone number, so that ShareIt can send notices about interlibrary loan to patrons, but not extensive. It's not going to give them the address or other information about the patron.
Awesome. We don't have any more questions, Eric, but did you want to do just a quick tutorial or just a kind of quick demo of the software? Do you want me to stop sharing?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you for all the great questions that everyone is submitting. That's it's great to hear that you're interested, and I was so pleased that Eric was willing to do this for us because I think it's a I think it really is a great product, and I certainly believe in it. And I know a lot of libraries out there are really enjoying it. So. Um, look at that. Yeah, that's the famous map that that Eric was mentioning with all the libraries. And if you come to again, Eric is just looking at findmoreillinois.org. And yep, looks great.
Okay, great. Thanks for saying that. I wasn't sure it was showing up. I'm not seeing the green border. So yes, this is the Find More Illinois website where you can get lots of good information. But let's show you what the ShareIt software looks like. So let me go ahead and log in as a patron. If I log in as a patron, basically all I see is a search prompt. And I can do searches, and I can filter searches if you look at the left-hand side, and I can request items. You'll see that it's still looking at one search, so there are some results that are pending yet. Some of the things I mentioned quickly, it's nice because you can then filter results if you're looking for particular awards or particular reading program levels or interest levels, things like that. Can be very helpful if you have reading programs that you're serving. So that's what the patron sees. Basically, this is what they see. There's an additional functionality that basically it's like the patron account information that you'd see in a regular library catalog. But frankly, not a lot of patrons use it because they use the ShareIt software to place interlibrary loan requests. They don't need it to do more. The interface for staff is much the same. I'm logged in as a staff member right now. I just did a keyword search for Agent Jack. I was looking for this particular title. You may have noticed that I used it as an example in the demo. But it also has an option to look at a staff dashboard. This is the aspect of the system that staff use to process requests. And most of that action is on the request manager. Now I'm going to look at our account. And because our account isn't a public library, it's not very active. But this gives people a general idea of what the desktop, if you will, of processing interlibrary loans and Find More Illinois looks like. Basically what happens, and you know what? Let me try something. Let me see if I can find something at a participating library to give you a better example. Great. So Bloomington Public Library has 2 pending lender requests. On the right side, these are the lender requests. On the left side are the things that Bloomington staff and or patrons have requested of other Find More Illinois libraries. So if I see that there are pending requests waiting for my response, all I need to do is click on this list. I can go ahead and I can print a pick list that will help me find those items on the shelf. And hopefully you can see this. I'm dragging it in into the shared section, I hope.
Yeah, we can see it.
Great. And then just update the request from pending to shipped. Click submit, apply the change. Then I would just go and print a shipping list, attach it to the item, check it out in my system if I have a local library system that wants to track the item, and drop it in the bin. So I know that staffing is a concern for school libraries and small libraries, but I think that, the software makes it a lot easier to manage the interlibrary loan workflow for a limited staff. If I wanted to, I can go in and I can look at more details. I can basically edit the request. I can tell them, look, we're not going to send this to you unless you agree that it's only used in the library. So you've got lots of options. You can say, we're not going to send this to you at all. And that's fine. The system tries to find the next library that can fill it. Otherwise, you can add conditions or do other things with it. So it has a very feature-rich set of functionality, but if you only want to use it in a limited fashion, you can do that too. You can say, you know what, we're either going to ship them or we're going to reject them. And that's all you need to worry about when you're processing requests. The other thing I should have mentioned when someone asked about libraries that prevent requests on certain collections is that you can always manually request or reject an individual request. So in addition to being able to automatically deflect requests for your rare book collection or your genealogy collection, whenever you see something in your pending request list, you can look at that list and say, oh yeah, I know we're going to have a program about this next week. We're not sending that. And you just say, we're not sending it. It's very simple to reject the requests. What else would you like to see?
Yeah, so actually, there's a question in here from Dawn, and Dawn says, "Does this include ebooks, digital materials, and ebooks?"
So searches will include results that have audiobooks, electronic formats. Yes. However, there are ways to make sure that your system is set up so that your patrons can never request them. The company is doing some enhancements to improve that functionality, but right now there's a way, if you, not again, this is kind of weedy, if you look at the fixed fields in the MARC record, you can say, look, if it has this, this, and this fixed field, that means it's an ebook. We're not going to send it. You can set that up.
Thank you. We still have some questions. Still have some time for questions if anybody has something. I was going to ask you a little bit more about like getting oriented as a new Find More Illinois library. You said somewhere between 6 and 10 weeks, I believe, to kind of get all the way up to speed. Would you talk just a little bit about that process and what that includes?
So yes, in fact, let me refer to our onboarding plan. So after you sign a participation agreement, the timeline basically starts, and we work with you to establish a timeline that works for you. We don't say this is going to be when things happen. We're going to say here's the general time frame. When would you like to do this? As I mentioned, one of the things that takes the most amount of time initially is the data gathering phase. Especially, I know that schools have IT departments that are stretched thin. So some schools have a hard time getting their IT support to give them feedback in a timely fashion. So we understand that. So working with you and your IT support is something that might take 3 to 4 weeks tops to get all the information we need. Then we take that information, we forward it to the Share It staff. They use that information to create your account. During that process, there's a lot of troubleshooting because sometimes the network access isn't set up correctly, or we have the wrong information and it needs to be corrected. But we do a lot of legwork in the beginning to make sure that once you have training, the system's going to work for you. I don't know if this is really answering your question, Dan, but basically it's a process of setting a timeline, getting information, Share It does the work. At some point, we basically tell the library, hey, you've got your account, feel free to test it. before we have training to get familiar with it, and then we have training. And the training is, we're really flexible on training. It's usually a day. Lately, I've been splitting it in 2 days because although it's not complicated, it's a lot of information to throw at people on
Yeah.
one day. So I like to split it up into 2 half days, and people seem to respond to that well. And then once you're trained, as far as we're concerned, you are ready. You are ready to start using the system.
Yeah. No, that's great. And so one of the reasons I asked that question, and one of the reasons I've been kind of asking some questions that I think will sort of help, is because this is a bigger thing, right? This is not something that you would just make a decision on a Tuesday and go do to make sure, to have your library to join something like an ILL software facilitation like Find More Illinois. But I do want to show people that it's easier than you think. And when we say something like orientation process, that the orientation process, besides some data gathering and besides a little bit of training with Eric, is not an imposing thing. I think we've tried to spell out here today a little bit that that it's not that expensive, that it really doesn't require much from you all in terms of maintenance, and in terms of information that you would need to be that providing. It's safe for your students. It's a great way. It's an amazing way to open them up to a whole new world of materials. And I know a lot of school libraries out there suffer from but just lack of budgets for new materials. You're looking for materials for kids, and you just don't have the funds. I totally understand that. The ways Sometimes, I mean, this is just something that we always try to emphasize, that the system is the way to get materials into the hands of your kids. A lot of times is through interlibrary loan, and it's easier than you think. It really is. And we try to make it as painless on you as possible. You've all come in with great questions, fantastic questions, and really asked us exactly what we were hoping you would ask. So for that, I really thank you. Eric, before I start to kind of close things out, is there anything that we didn't ask you, or if for anyone out there, is there any questions that you have that you would like to ask before we start to close out?
Let me show you a couple things that I referenced in the demo. Um, so Frog and Toad is high literature. I will fight you if you argue. I'm going to do a search in Prairie Cat for Frog and Toad because I'd like to demonstrate open URLs and how they work. So if I am a member of Prairie Cat and I do a search for a particular title and it's not listed in Prairie Cat, or maybe it's not available in Prairie Cat, what they've done is really nice. They've added an open URL on the search results screen so that if I click on it, it passes a keyword search to the Share It software and executes that search among all the Find More Illinois participating libraries, which is really nice. Something to keep in mind, some libraries are very resistant against patrons requesting items that they own locally, even if those items aren't on shelf. So if you're a library that says, look, if we own something, I don't care if it's checked out, I'm not going to let my patron request an interlibrary loan. Share It can accommodate that. However, it can also accommodate the opposite. If you say, generally speaking, if we have something that's available, I don't want Share It to let my patron place the interlibrary loan request because it's here. They can take it off the shelf. But if it's not on the shelf, Share It can be set up to say, oh, they don't have it right now. I'm going to let them place the interlibrary loan request. That's good to know for libraries that might have very high demand items. So yes, you own it, but you don't have a copy available right now. Something else to keep in mind, and this comes from my history as a procrastinating student. I would go to the library and I'd say, I need this book. When do you need it? Well, the paper's due tomorrow. So it's important to manage those expectations, especially with students. Find More Illinois items are routed along the same time frame as they are routed between different libraries in Rails. So I'd say between 4 and 7 days, most of them. if you decide to take a look at Find More Illinois, that's something to keep in mind that, look, things aren't going to be available the next day. It takes time for the delivery system to get them to your library, especially as Find More Illinois grows and we get really geographically disparate libraries participating. Something to keep in mind. Um, what else to keep in mind? There's a lot there.
Yeah, can I just interject here? And actually, Rochelle is actually asking a question along that same lines. If a school is sending a book to someone who requests it, how is the shipping paid for? By the lending library, borrowing library, or other? The answer to that question, Rochelle, and I'll jump in here for Eric, is other. The,
Yes.
the the shipping is paid for by Rails. Again, any shipping that you do within the state of Illinois to other libraries is free. We will pick it up from you. And I can you know what, I can drop a link into the chat a little bit about how delivery works, and you can take a look at that. But you can send items and you can receive items for free. And a lot of different schools are set up differently in terms of how you receive them. But we'll communicate with you in terms of when you have an item, when you're receiving an item, and you would communicate us in terms of when you want to ship an item. We also want to note that is a library that's not doing a lot of interlibrary loan frequently, you can actually mail an item to another library, and then you can request reimbursement for the cost of shipping that item. We will pay for that as long as it's to another library within Illinois. So great question, Rochelle. I really appreciate that. Eric, anything else you want to add?
I said this a few times, so forgive the repetition, but I just want to emphasize, if you're interested and you just want to learn more about the project, don't hesitate just to send an email to info@findmoreillinois.org. We are happy to talk to you. We're not salespeople. We don't get commissions. Rails tries to find solutions that fit your needs. So we will tell you, oh no, you don't have the ILL traffic to, justify this cost. You probably want to look at something else. We're not going to try to sell you something you don't need. We're just trying to help. So don't hesitate to contact us.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And I'll bring it to a close tonight. I really appreciate everybody that came and asked terrific questions again. I think I saw a lot of curiosity from you all, and that is something I always expect from school librarians. I think school librarians are super curious people, which is fantastic. I think I do agree with Eric that again, we just want you to do as much as much resource sharing as possible. That's totally our goal here, is to make sure that you and your students get the resources that they need. If you do an OCLC and you're happy with it, great, that's fine, and that's all you need, that's fine. If you want to try Find More Illinois, give it a shot. I think that people that have been pretty happy with it so far. So Eric, thank you so much for your time this evening. Thank you everyone for coming. Again, this will be recorded, and we'll put a link on the YouTube page for it, and I'll make sure that everyone on the IO list gets a chance to see it as well. So thank you, everyone. Good night. Have a great holiday. Take care.
Thank you, Mr. Bostrom.
All right. Bye, everyone.